good evening, and welcome back. All the sage advice Boris Johnson ignored on COVID last month. 10 p.m. closing time doesn't work, test and trace isn't working, needs more funding, and closing gyms may do more harm than good. And it's hardly anything new here, but we'll go into the specifics in a moment. But as an aside from some back-of-the-envelope calculations that I've done, based on there being almost 2,000 deaths per year from car accidents, car fatalities, and now being about 40,000 deaths from the coronavirus, given that people with coronavirus have it all the time, and people driving only drive about 2 hours a day, and only half the population actually drives, and that's averaging out, say, 2 hours, that's everybody with a license, not just everybody that drives, then they're as risky as each other, driving and the coronavirus, as far as deaths are concerned, which would then make you wonder, because they say that, well, if you're scared about anything, then stop driving. Then they say, well, no, you're not going to stop driving because you need that in order to get to and from work, to have your life, to have a life and live and get your job. And say, well, yeah, you also need to be able to go to your job, not only with your vehicle then, but also with coronavirus. You also need that in order to live. Then they go like, yeah, but it's not nearly as deadly. I was like, yes, except when you average out then the times. And if you want to say that, well, yeah, but you've only really got COVID for 12 hours a day when you're moving about. So, okay, in that case, given that half the population have licenses, and I'm saying 2 hours per day, maybe it averages out to 1 hour per day, given how many people with licenses don't drive, in which case, again, it balances out. So, they are, actually, akin to each other when it comes to fatalities. That is COVID so far in total in the UK compared to driving in any given year. So the COVID rate will probably increase a bit though. So do bear that in mind. But with that in mind, let's go on to the article. So Sage put forward 24 suggestions about how to navigate through a second wave of the pandemic, many of which fell on deaf ears, including national circuit breaker. Yeah, we'll get through to it as they list them down here. So, test and trace is only having marginal impact on containing the epidemic, and if it doesn't get up to speed quickly, it'll decline further in future, saying that up to September 30th, only about 70% of people who had been in contact with someone who tested positive were then contacted. And because of that, of course, it's not as effective as it should be. And then you can't get the messaging out, in which case, what's the point in investing so much time, effort, and resources into something that then isn't having the impact? You either go full and hard or you don't bother at all. And of course, we'd say you don't bother at all. Next, ordering everyone who is able to work from home to do so could reduce the R by between 0.2 and 0.4. The R is in the reproduction rate. It's got to be lower than 1 so that you're infecting fewer than 1 people for every person who has it. The reason that wasn't done is because old Bojo was concerned about, what about people using public transport and then that economy, or going out to like cafes for that economy, or the shops to get the sandwiches and the like. What about that economy? That just isn't going to be supported. And sure, when there's a government mandate, then it's definitely their responsibility because they're forcing change. But at the same time, if people were to decide, yeah, actually I'd rather work from home and it's just as good, and I'd rather just see my friends out of work hours or at the weekends, and it also means that I could work somewhere hundreds of miles away from where I live, have a separate life outside of work, and not have to move. Perfect. In that case, not because of a virus, you'd get the same outcome, which isn't really a bad thing. Yes, it sucks for those people who now their business is outdated, but that always happens in every industry. Closing gyms only has low to moderate impact on COVID-19 spread and may limit access to exercise for physical and mental well-being. Definitely said that one before as well. Especially when it comes down to what kind of people are going to be using the gym. Probably the healthier people, in which case they haven't got it. And if they have got it, then they're boosting their immune system, as well as the other people that they're with are going to have stronger immune systems. So that's not going to be an issue. And you're not going to get the kind of small controversy they had over in America. I think it was California, but it could have been New York, whether gyms were closed unless it was for law enforcement, in which case they were open because they need to stay fit. They've got fitness tests. So, hang on, what about the rest of us? Why are our rights being trampled on? What if we're fitness tests, or what if we want to stay healthy? Next, mandatory masks in offices and schools would help curb the virus's spread, particularly when social distancing is harder. Evidence suggests face coverings reduce viral exposure, leading to less severe symptoms, depending on which model you're using, because now we're seeing them saying, this is how the impact will probably be, regardless of masks, doesn't really matter. And you're thinking, well, then what's the bloody point? This seems now just to be politicking instead of healthcare. Maybe that's what it was always about. Next, shutting universities and switching all students to online-only courses would drag down the R rate by up to 0.5 and have very little downsides. Well, for one, you can get a university tuition online for free anyway, through places like YouTube and like Khan Academy, depending on what you're going for. And then yes, and of course if you're going for economy, I hear the Academic Agent has made a new econ course, and for the humanities, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, of course, has his self-authoring suite as well, which are so much cheaper than universities. Are you not getting the university life? No, but you're going to have friends. Aren't you? Didn't you learn to make friends? You can have them near you, almost similar to homeschooling. And if they're saying that universities can do online-only courses, and that's not a problem, does that mean homeschooling could also be something worthwhile? Well, that'd be good. Next, encouraging high-risk people to stay in their homes would have low impact on the virus's spread, but moderate impact on the number of deaths and hospitalizations. That's a breath of fresh air, isn't it? Thanks, Captain Obvious. As in, people who can't really go out much, if they don't go out at all, they wouldn't spread it much. Hardly a surprise, because that's not much of a change. But they'd be at a much lower risk of getting it, and therefore far lower risk of dying from it. Yeah, that's what we've been saying since the beginning. That let's not force everybody else to bend to your will, but if you're concerned, you can deal with that yourself. That's then your responsibility. If you don't want to go out, you do not have to go out. Even if you're not high risk, but you're very scared. If you want to then work from home or change business and change career in order to make it happen, you want things ordered in instead and you want to disinfect it when it comes in, by all means do that. You do not have to go outside. Just like agoraphobics, that kind of thing. You don't have to if you don't want to. We're not making you go outside. Not at all. Life is risky. It's part of the intrigue, and it comes back to the driving accidents that I mentioned earlier as well. You can't stop them all. Finally, limiting people from travelling more than 5 miles from their homes could have moderate benefit, although communicating and enforcing the policy is likely to be very complicated. Yeah, and again, something that would not be politically favourable if your family lives further away. You can't see them, friends further away, you can't see them holidays, or you just need a break. You can't do that. And of course, with these things, you can see how historically towns and cities have set up due to the amount that people would be willing to walk. And therefore, you've got, they're about, I think, 15, 20 miles apart. And through valleys, this is particularly obvious as well, that people living in the outskirts would only want to go that far in 10, 15 miles, because then they have to come back as well in the day in order to make their trip. So you have the town and city spread up equidistant from each other, because that is how far people are willing to walk. But you've got someone from one side of the city going to the city, then meeting somebody from the other side of the city, who's then going to go back to the other side of the city, who's going to interact with somebody on a neighbouring city, and so on. So if you're concerned with so many people having it, then it isn't really going to stop it at all. And if you go and travel for more than 5 miles from your home, does that mean if you've got a long commute, you're not allowed to do that either? Yeah. But that's the latest information. So you can understand why Bojo ignored some of it, and also disagree with him for ignoring it. And of course, when it comes down to having so many facts and figures and statistics, you can use them to support whatever claim you want to. So I could do the same and say, hey, there's no reason for a lockdown, or for us to wear masks, or for anybody to change their lives unless they wish to. And I can give you support for that. Conversely, somebody could say, yes, we need to do all of the above, and I'll give you information and statistics for that. So, yeah, of course you're going to get conflicting information, and then as a leader, you have to decide which way you want to go, understand the consequences of it, and be steadfast with your reasoning, and stick with it. If new information comes out, then by all means, change tune. But until then, you do have to stick with your decision and make it work. That's the role of a leader. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.